it?
There we go.
It's got two.
And so it's getting Mikey, and it's got the screen, and that's good to go, I think.
Yeah, it is. Whereas the last time we did the cruise one, it just had the screen, so we were missing what was going on that
Yeah,
side.
okay.
I think this is about all we're going to get, which is, considering the weather, I think that's a pretty good turnout, actually.
It's all about you, Mikey.
Yeah, that's right. That's probably why. Welcome. This is an event just to go over the last year's event and what we have planned, or we're trying to plan for the future. We've got a bit of a show, a slideshow put up here. I think it was put together by Bill down there, as usual, with a bit of help from others. We'll just get straight into it. We've got a... Get this thing working. This is our very short program for tonight. Thought we'd put the budget in there just so that you can see where the money went, your money went, our money went, which we'll get straight into. So that's our, you can see it was almost break even. Hope Craig is not looking at it too closely. There's only about $1,000 here difference, so which is pretty good. The last barley we did, that worked out about $90,000. So this one, because we had a few less than the Exmouth we had, the previous Exmouth, I think it was about 75 to 80. And again, it was break even pretty much. This is how it's come down here. Got a bit of a pie chart there. You can see where the money went. The bulk of the money came from entry fees and crew entry fees. Most of that money went out on race-related things like the trackers, the party at the end, T-shirts, things like that. Yeah, T-shirts. And this is how it was broken up. As you can see, that there was a couple of things that cost us a lot of money, which was when the trackers, which are part of the event, we've got to have those anyway. The container was obviously a fair suck on the funds, but we consider it part of the event, even though you'll see later it was only used by about 50% of the people. It's such a handy thing to have, even as far as the club goes, taking equipment and stuff up there for the event.
You know, Mikey, in other countries they charge a lot to people for a ride in the container.
Yeah. And
race control refuses to travel in a container.
We didn't. Again, we tried, but we didn't have our billing nailed down. We've got to do a little bit of work on that because I don't think anybody put stuff in there that wasn't paid for. But we just need to encourage more people to use it. With the other big expense is the presentation dinner, but that is offset by $5,000, which is earmarked directly for it from the local council, the Shire. So we got I guess a 25% discount on that anyway. And if we have a similar event, we can't really do much about reducing those costs because being a remote site, it's a lot of people for an evening, and they have to hire a lot of stuff in. And Darlene, who just happens to be the Shire president, was the caterer as well. So it's all a little bit incestuous, the whole lot. So everybody knows everybody. You're pretty much locked into to using them. The race and rally report. I'm not sure where we're going to go with this, but we've got our esteemed race officer here who's going to talk to that.
Can you hear me? Yeah. Okay. I'm going to cheat a little bit. I've got Cam's excellent notes because he's really good at numbers and stuff. I just try and remember it all and don't. Anyway. Okay, from a race control perspective, I'm talking the race, not the finish. because I didn't get up to the finish this last year. Work stuff in a way. We didn't really have any problems apart from one tiny incident, which I will talk about in a sec. But yeah, all the skids, 100%. We didn't miss one, not one skid, all the way up. All came in. We were running the skids in about, I think the quickest one I did was 6 minutes, which is pretty quick. And that was all before the hour, you know, literally, if it was 8 o'clock or 9 o'clock, by 9 o'clock they were all done. And it was like, okay, come on, go to bed now. I didn't, but literally the skids were that quick. It was very, very impressive, especially after the first night. After that, it was just bang, 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 bang. A few people came in a bit early, but that's life. I knew where people are from the trackers. That's not the whole. We're not after your exact position, because we can see that on the trackers. It's more, yeah, you know, there's still somebody on the boat alive. It's not on autopilot, and that's really what we're worried about. And I'm sure you'll tell us if you are the only one left. So that's all good. So yeah, the skids, from our perspective, worked really well. There was a couple of boats that had a few issues receiving our text back when we acknowledged we got yours, but those guys sorted it out on the water out there. You know, it was obviously, these were new guys, a little bit new technology for them maybe, but they worked through it, and yeah, it all, after the first, certainly after the second night, everything was just bang on, and people were getting our response and everything, so it worked really well from that perspective with us. We only had two incidences that we had to deal with, really. One was an accidental AIS activation. We didn't get to obviously hear that from Canberra or anybody else, but the boat involved texted us and told us that they'd accidentally set it off and corrected it, and really that was just information to us, just in case we got a call from Canberra, we knew about it. So yeah, it was accidental, it's all good, everything's happy. The one PLB that went off, which did give us a bit of a, you know, something to do for an hour and a half, because that's how long it took to sort out, literally. And believe you me, you do not want the water police in Canberra screaming down the phone at you for an hour and a half, because they were getting quite anxious. So, yeah, we had a PLB go off. I'm not naming boats. I immediately texted all the boats around them, and it took a long time to get a response from any of those boats. I texted the boat and the boats that were around it, just saying, I'm not going to say the boat, please contact this boat, read PLB activation. And it took, I mean, I've got the numbers here. It took a long time. It took like 40 odd minutes to get anybody to get hold of them, that particular boat. And it took over an hour before that boat actually contacted me and said, yeah, it was false activation. Which is quite a long time. And at that stage, the water police were talking about launching the Kalbarri Sea Rescue and putting an aeroplane in the air. So it was getting fairly serious and fairly intense at that point. Even though we were all pretty convinced it was just false. But until I got that confirmation from the boat, they were not going to stand down the aircraft, and Kalbarri Sea Rescue had their boat in the water. So yeah, it was pretty late at night. So you had the Sea Rescue crew down there, ready to go. I mean, we knew exactly where to send them, but they were ready to go out. So it is fairly serious, but on another note, that was the 4th one I had last season. So it's not just something for this race, it is across a lot of other races last year where, and I'll let Steve talk about the new the new bags and stuff, because he's been doing a lot of research.
At the end, probably.
At the end, yep. You know, it's people, you know, you stick them in your back bag and bum bag, whatever you call them, and then you set them off. And you don't know that it's gone off until we get a call from the Water Police or Canberra saying we've got an EPIRB gone off in your race, what do you know about it? Unfortunately, usually my first answer is, I don't. I'll make some inquiries. Because unfortunately with PLBs, Canberra see it, I don't. So I don't get told until somebody in authority is talking to me. And they're starting to think about sending up aeroplanes and all that sort of thing at that time. So it is fairly serious. And it is something that we need to look at across the whole board of certainly offshore sailing and cruising. It's not just this particular race. I mean, I must stress that. It's not something that's just affecting this race, it's across the whole spectrum. Because sooner or later, they're going to be sending an aeroplane, and God knows what else out there, and if the wrong reporter gets it, what are all these rich yachties doing, spending all their safety money, you know, there could be huge repercussions down the track with that. So it's just something we do need to seriously think about. Other than that, from my perspective, the race is pretty interesting. You know, a square reach at the start with a bit of breeze, so that was pretty specky to watch. I had trouble keeping up with it on success. I managed, but I had trouble. Yeah, it all went off and it looked really good. I know there's some really good photographs floating around from it. Bit of a windy first night, I believe, but it was fine where I was. So. I didn't get wet at all. So yeah, so really that's the only two incidents. One, we got told straight away, and that just went to bed. The second one did take a while, but that is something that we need to look at from an overall yachting perspective, because it has come up, say there was 4 last year that I was involved with, not only, there may have been others that I wasn't involved with. So it is something we do need to think about. And I'll let Steve talk, because he's been doing a lot of research on different life jackets and pockets and all sorts of stuff. I'll let Steve talk about that towards the end. We didn't have any issues with the finishing. We got lots of information, sighted the line. We obviously got the tracker ones and reports on the boats, and the time difference between the 3 different ways of recording the finishing were minuscule at the end of the day. No matter which way you went, it didn't. I crunched a few numbers a lot of times, and no matter which system you used for the finishing, it didn't change the results. So I was pretty happy with that overall. So apart from, I mean, unless, some of the finish team are here, unless you had any major problems up your end, Sherry?
Negative, we didn't finish them.
No. And I believe all the escorting in and everything went off so well.
Yeah.
Having our own boat up there was very useful, I believe, from that point. We had a boat for the whole event to bring people in. And I hope you all enjoyed yourself.
It made a massive difference actually, and it was absolutely fabulous as you came into the little harbour area there, and we had all of these guys standing, shouting and screaming, and the rib out with Fremantle Sailing Club faces. As far as I was concerned, it absolutely was gold.
That's wonderful. That's really good good to hear. Yeah, I mean, I couldn't get there this time. We'll see what happens in the future. So, yeah. Well,
Just a quick question. The delays with sort of raising other boats, and what were the causes of that, and what do you want to sort of change in the future to try and reduce those delays?
well, we need to. I mean, this is a bit of a work in progress, obviously. We probably need to understand the infrastructure on all the different boats, and how, you know, you've done your sked, and to a certain extent that's now in the back of your mind. It's how to get the boats to see that we're trying to get hold of them. And I'll put my hand up right now. I don't have an answer for that right now, because one of the problems is there are so many different communication systems across the board. You know, one thing might work brilliantly for some people, but if they don't have that particular software or that particular type of phone or whatever, it won't work for somebody else. So it is a very big work in progress. I don't know, Cam's been doing a lot of work with it. These two gentlemen here have been doing a lot of work with it. And I'm sure lots of other people have as well. And I don't have a straight answer for you right at the moment. I'll be quite upfront. But it is something we're working on. Because, you know, that is a major line of communication. And it gets quite, you know, I've got water police in one phone and I'm trying to talk to other people in the other phone, which is fine, that's my job. I mean, I'm not detracting from that at all. And somebody answer the phone, you know, somebody answer a text. Just get hold of that boat and, you know, that's a little bit frustrating for me in a way. I've sent a dozen texts to a dozen boats all around them, and nobody's picking it up. But it is a work in progress, and we need to find a solution to it. Any other questions? That's cool.
A slightly different perspective on that. Anyone who uses a PLV can accidentally trigger it, and
yeah,
that's that's a risk we've all taken by having that technology.
Yes.
But you know, if there is an easy way to solve it, then great. But you know, it could be saving a life as well. So.
Oh, yeah. I'm not saying we should not use them by any stretch of any imagination. It is really about how we manage that and control that. That accidental activation. I mean, I hope to God they're all accidental activations.
But if they put the plane up and go and find out that the boat's fine, then
yeah, that's also fine. But you know, there are people out there that will go, oh, it's money wasted. But you know, which is not the answer. But yeah.
Carol, I think, you know, we could say, oh, we should be dealing with it, but I think it's not a problem unique to us either. And I think if you look at the, you know, one of the more better known incidents involving Celestial and their accidental activation a couple of years ago, you know, there's a lot of minds working on how to address this, so we're not alone.
No.
We're looking for a solution.
But that's right. Yeah, I mean, and if anybody's got any ideas, yeah, you know, please talk to me about it. You know, I mean, I'm not a guru on electronics and stuff, so you know, I'm leaving it a little bit to others in that way.
So we weren't on the rally last year, so this is kind of a bit new to us. But can someone just tell me, the texting, is that through sat phone?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So we text. The whole communication is via text.
Everybody's got a sat phone.
Everybody's got a sat phone.
Yeah.
But of course, I've also got phone numbers of the boats. I've got the phone number of every skipper, because a lot of the places up the coast, you're in phone coverage as well.
Yeah.
And believe you me, I was ringing every number I could. I had my spreadsheet open, and I was ringing sat phones, people's phones,
Yeah.
all sorts of things, you know.
I did Bali Rally a long time ago.
Yeah.
And we had the sat phone, but the sat phone, because it was hired, sat in a case in a phone box somewhere safe because it was so expensive. Turn it off.
Yeah.
And I suspect that's probably still the case to some degree. I don't know, I'm just throwing up an idea. Does anyone have any kind of interface between sat phone and VHF or DSC? Because if there was some kind of interface between those two and a sat phone could set off a DSC alarm, everyone's got VHF and everyone leaves it turned on.
Yeah.
That seems to be maybe...
I mean, I don't know whether you know Cam, who's like my offside or back-to-back, whatever you want to call him. He works for Barrett Communications, so he's pretty much up with that sort of technology.
Yeah.
So I'm sure if it was out there, he would know about it.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's a huge subject. It's not just about this event. It's a huge subject across offshore sailing, which is my particular interest, but cruising and everything, you know.
In many ways, for an event like this, or Sydney Hobart or anything like that, it would also be good if AMSA directly relayed the PLB going off to the event organised instead of waiting for the next satellite pass to go over.
Yeah.
And then contact them.
They're really good. They actually set up an incident for the race.
Right.
This is how they work. That's how it's explained to me. So they set up an incident for the whole race. So if a PLB or an AIS go off, they instantly know that it's in the race.
Right.
Because it comes on their screen and they know instantly who to ring. So they set up this pretty big spreadsheet of everybody out there, and I believe they do the same for the Sydney Hobart. That's what I've been told. And so any number in that list, bang, they know straight away who to ring.
Right.
So that's something that they already set up. I don't know about relaying it to us. I think there may be some. I don't know.
No, it was just whether there was a time delay between when they found out
Oh,
and
no.
waited for another pass the satellite.
They will contact us within less than a minute. When it comes on their screen, they know, ring this guy.
Right.
What do you know about it? And unfortunately, usually, it's not much.
Yeah.
Which is...
Yeah, you're now telling me.
Yeah. I have had occasions last year where I actually had the father of the guy whose PLB was ring me and say what's going on before AMSA rang me. While I was talking, because they rang him first, because he was the first contact, he instantly rang me, and while he rang me, the water police rang me. I had 2 phone calls, all within, I don't know, 30 seconds or so. So yeah, it's pretty quick.
The point is, we should reiterate how valuable that quick response is.
Oh,
That is
absolutely.
fantastic. We need to hone in on how good that is.
Yeah, I mean, it's fantastic. You know, technology's moved
Before
on.
that,
You know, hugely, from that perspective.
Not to negate the seriousness of it, because it is very serious, but is this simply a transitional issue for the next 5-6 years? The new technology that's coming in, the new combined devices, if it goes off, the AIS goes off as well, whoever is on that boat is going to be screaming at them very loudly to go and check it. They will figure it out pretty quickly.
Yeah.
So is that worthwhile considering?
It is, yeah. I mean, and technology moves, crikey, so quickly. I mean, when I started getting involved with this sort of race level, AISs were like, what were they? Now it's like, everybody's got one. So, and it's like sat phones. I have one in both my trucks because they're just so cheap nowadays compared to what they used to be. You know. So yeah, I think that's enough for me.
And just on that, the biggest problem with the sat phone is that you can't hear it. You know, and that's really it's all we've got to do is work out some way of making it louder or an electric shock to the skipper or something. So,
thanks, Mikey. Yes, I'd like to give you the results of our survey. And you might want to discuss a few these things, but we might hold the discussion till the end because the survey of what we did this time is very important, of course, because we want to do better next time. But also it leads on to Bill, who's going to talk about what we might do next. So 35 people replied to the survey, and thanks very much to them. This is the breakdown here. The red is mostly where were crew members. Well, there's more of them anyway, so that makes sense. Unfortunately, we didn't get any volunteers reply, but the volunteers were very much appreciated as part of this survey. How organised was the event? The biggest one is the red there, so it was very organised. 25% the blue, extremely organised. Orange is somewhat organised and very pleasing. There was nothing not very organised or not at all organised, didn't rate at all, so that was impressive. Event briefings from very satisfied down to not very satisfied. Well, I'm not a statistician, of course, so I'll just make my comments and everybody else can make theirs at the end. That's your privilege. So my take on this is the biggest number was very satisfied. However, it is concerning, I would say, that there's so many down this end, 14%, who were not very satisfied. So we need to, and the other slides will show us a bit perhaps why that was so. The documents and information, notice of race, sailing instructions, etc. Again, very satisfied, 40% here, but it is concerning we have so many still down this end as well. We'd prefer to have none down the not very satisfied end. Promotion and media releases. We didn't excel at the very satisfied, we excelled in the next step there, but it's still in all the other categories, including not very satisfied, so clearly we need to do better there as well. Oops. Sorry. Update on the updates that we gave. 25% satisfied, but it's spread across the board as well, all the way across to not being very satisfied. So we're not excelling there either. Rate the satisfaction of communication and responsiveness from race officers. Looks like you did a pretty good job, Trevor. You've got 46% there. There's always going to be some people unsatisfied. We might find out some hints maybe why that might be, but I'd say that's not bad because in between it's pretty low. So some of these, there was 5 questions where you could put comments in. We've tried to pick out some comments which were sort of representative of more of the majority. How can the organising committee and club staff help more to make it easier for sailors to be well prepared in good time before the event starts. So things like mentioned here, of course, workshops on safety, safety compliance to be required early, more information on stability and keel and rudder inspections early. This early thing it seems to be a key. More detail on proposed communication strategy. I guess that's all just helping with us all with understanding how the communication is supposed to work. The dreaded checklists. A show and tell sort of idea. Have a boat set up where you could invite people to come and inspect and discuss, and you could show things the safety order might be looking for, and advise newcomers to prepare well ahead of time. So all this early is coming through a lot. Did your boat have any vessel or onboard issues? So look, 71% there said no. That's pretty pleasing, I would say. But there's 29% yes. Type of vessel or onboard issues, so you can see them there. I think, what's the biggest one? The biggest one is instruments. Sail is about the same, yes, exactly the same. Instruments, sail problems. Engine problem a bit less, and water ingress. That's a bit scary, but that's there. So you might be able to guess these things, but it is good to know where the major problems can and do occur. How did you use the shipping container? Well, as Mikey said, more than half there did not use it at all. To Exmouth, that was the bigger chunk, 31%, and both ways, 14%. I agree with what Mike said, you know, you need a shipping container. Quite a lot of large, heavy items you don't want on your boat, but you want up in Exmouth to go cruising, etc. So it's a useful commodity, and maybe we just got to make more use of it. The presentation dinner was 37%, very satisfied. But again, I'd say it's disconcerting that we've got 20% down that end, not very satisfied, and so we need to do better there as well. And it does say somewhere along a bit more about that. What did you like best about this year's event? Arrival at the Exmouth Marina, yes, that's not surprising, we enjoyed that. The atmosphere in Exmouth gets talked about a lot. All the volunteers and people making everyone welcome, and not surprisingly, Whalebone Brewery was loved by most people. Challenging race, but unlike Hobart, it gets warmer, not colder. Yes, good point. Community spirit and camaraderie up in Exmouth, great experience. We left early and took a bit of time to enjoy inside Dirt Hut Island and Shark Bay, relaxing, swimming and enjoying the camaraderie. That sounds a lot like Anita and crew. Anita was the only early leaver. I think she's the only smart one in the room. And
I have 3 others on board.
3 others?
On board.
Yeah, okay, so 4 smart people. The presentation night was great fun, lovely food and hospitality. It's good to hear. What do you think are the opportunities to improve the event? Maybe the community event on Saturday could have been bigger. Yeah. Presentation night, more comment about the presentation night. A good MC needed, a better sound system. So feedback there. Acknowledge the rally fleet better for what they do as part of the event. Better transport options for getting around Exmouth. Onshore activities for non-sailors, all ideas. More help and advice for getting boats back, which is always a major headache and a potential barrier to entrance. Testing crew for COVID before.
Was that yesterday?
I think it came from one of my crew. Would have been a good idea. Any other feedback or suggestions to improve your experience? I would recommend the race. However, I would warn any participants about the difficulty in gaining clarification when required, particularly with older boats or perhaps not production boats. Better communication with the physical side of the container, e.g. bags in, bags out, payment. Ask for feedback more promptly and promote event externally. I think, feedback early is a good idea, but we've got there in the end now, so we've just got to use it going forward. If the goal of these rallies is to assist new skippers and crews into offshore cruising, I'm not sure the current model aligns well with accepted good practice. Again, you might have more ideas later on about that. The reception of each boat into the harbour, the rib coming out and people cheering on the jetty was just awesome. Huge effort by Volleys. It was a fantastic event and everyone's support immensely appreciated. So they were common themes running through the survey, appreciation of the volunteers. How likely are you to recommend the Fremantle to Exmouth event to a friend? Well, this is more pleasing, I would say, that 71% are likely to do that, and there's nobody down here at unlikely, so I think that's a better result. Overall, how would you rate this year's event out of 10? Again, I'd say that's a pleasing result. When did you return to Fremantle? The blue 34%, that was 1 to 2 days post-event. Exeter's red 31% within a week post-event. Orange 23% within a month post-event. And the remainder 11%, lucky devils, some of them are still out there. So what other locations would you suggest sailing from Fremantle? And lots of suggestions there, as you can see. Maybe the ones that got multiple suggestions, 5 for Albany, 6 for Bali, 3 for Broome. Coke's Islands, 5 people want to go out to the Coke's Islands. Dampier, 2 people. Darwin, 2 people. Esperance, 3. Geraldton, 3. Exmouth, some people only want to go to Exmouth. Fair enough, 3. Indonesia, 3. Lombok, 2. Rottnest Island, got a Rottnest Festival of Sail, somebody was keen on. Shark Bay, 2. And then this last one says, not too sure yet, depends if I'm allowed to retire or not. Are you likely to take part in the Fremantle to Exmouth in 2025? This is pleasing as well, 63% are saying yes. And then this one here also, 37% maybe, and nobody is saying no. Pleasing. Manning, did I miss a slide? No, that's good. Manning, over to you, Bill, I believe.
Steve, just a really quick question. For most of the responses there, we had 35 responses making up the stats.
Yeah.
So how many people, what was the sample size in terms of...
Good point. So I did work
that percentage out. It was 20% of the people that went responded, so 35 was 20% of the participants.
About 170, 180 people.
Yeah, good point. Yeah, thanks.
Okay, I'll just give a bit of an update on 2025. Look, I think the concept is really pretty simple. It's to run another event to Exmouth, a very short stay in Exmouth, time to have a few beers and a bit of a relax, and then move on to Indonesia as the second leg. Distance-wise, as we know, to Exmouth, it's 700 nautical miles. On to Indonesia, depending on where we go to, about 800, maybe 850 for some locations. So Exmouth's pretty handy in terms of being halfway. Sort of safety-wise, going to Exmouth will be just the same as this time, it's just Category 2. And for the rally boats going on to Indonesia, we believe we can run that as Category 2 as well. Unfortunately for the race boats, where we have to follow, we have zero flexibility, the race on to Indonesia will be Category 1. So not a lot of difference in terms of equipment, but there's a lot more pain in terms of to be able to establish stability for Category 1. It's necessary to do an inclining test on the boat. It's necessary to have a hull file to be able to interpret the results of the inclining test. And there's a whole lot more work associated with it. But for the rally boats, go on to Indonesia is no harder than just going to Exmouth. Where we're at the moment, I've described it, we're sort of in the pre-launch phase, so we've not made any external statements about this event yet. It was discussed at the board, and the board has agreed that we should go ahead and to plan and to run this event. But just like Exmouth, it'll be done on the basis that it covers its costs. So the club isn't expecting to make any money on it at all, and but it is expecting. It's probably not reasonable to expect other club members to subsidise boats going to Exmouth and Indonesia, so it's got to cover its direct costs. Doesn't cover probably full costs because things like staff costs, well, they're going to be spent anyway, so it's just a question of what people prioritise. But in terms of direct costs, it will cover it. Needs to cover its direct costs. And of course, to achieve that, that means, apart from keeping the costs down, securing some sponsorship. We've got a small working group. Neither Mike nor I managed to get out of the way quite fast enough, and Steve is taking an active interest, so small working group. We're going to go and see the Indonesian consulate tomorrow because we obviously need to get support from the Indonesian government, and we need to test their appetite and make sure, frankly, that they hear about the event from us rather than picking it up from the media somewhere. The last thing, which is important for the race boats, we want the races to be part of the Siska series for that year because that is a big driver in terms of getting the race boats to show up. So we have actually already made a request of Allworth that be included. As you've noticed, we've advertised it as Indonesia, not Bali, and there's a couple of reasons for that. The first one, I think, everybody knows Bali, everybody's been to Bali many times. Maybe it's time to go and look at some other locations. That's one factor. The other factor is that the Indonesian government has been very clear that it is, as far as they're concerned, Bali is overdeveloped. They don't want to encourage any more tourism to Bali, and they are only interested in promoting other locations. And so they have their plan for what they call the 10 Bali plan. So they want to try and get 9 other locations around Indonesia, which become as popular as Bali. So in the past, this event's been really generously supported by the Indonesian government, but I guess it's our assessment at the moment that if we say we're going to Bali, we will get minimal support. If we're going to another location, we might get some reasonable sponsorship. So at this stage, we're just calling it to Indonesia. I've had a sort of quick commentary up here in terms of some possible locations. I'll start over in East Java. There's Bangawangi, which has got a new marina. Of course, there's Benoa. There's a couple of locations on Lombok, which they're sort of half a marina, I suppose. They've got a collector jetty, and you can med more off the collector jetty, but it's not a full marina. And then the other location, which is geographically not too remote, and it's also an interesting area to visit, is over at Labuan Bajo, which is Komodo National Park to the east. Obviously, we've got to do some work on this. Obviously, number one, nobody's going to take their boat somewhere unless they know it's going to be safe when they arrive there, so secure mooring. Obviously, we'll be doing entry into Indonesia, so they must have the capability to be able to do the process boats for coming in, doing all the paperwork. In terms of making it an attractive event, obviously the onshore facilities are pretty important. Nobody wants to go just to somewhere with no entertainment or accommodation. As we found with Exmouth, when we talked about where we're going to run the race up the coast, do we go to Carnarvon, do we go to Dampier, do we go to Exmouth? And we decided on Exmouth because A, it's got a marina, and B, because it's a holiday destination. And looking at the number of people who came up, family, friends, I think it was a really big factor in terms of making Exmouth a success because it's an attractive destination in itself. And lastly, of course, people have got to be able to fly in and fly out, so we've got to look at access. So we'll do a screen of these other locations and really appreciate any ideas and feedback from people. Let's be honest, there are a couple of challenges with going on to Exmouth, to Indonesia. If you're not aware, you can note the only place in Western Australia where you can enter in a small boat is Fremantle. So Carnarvon, Dampier, Port Hedland, Broome, all those locations have been scrubbed, so it's only now at the moment is Fremantle, and I guess it's our view that unless we can get Dampier reinstated as a port of entry, then we don't have a viable event, because the only other alternative is go to Darwin, and it's an extra couple of thousand miles to go to via Darwin. Another one which you may not be aware of, but if you take your boat out of the country, there is an obligation for you to actually officially export your boat and pay an agent to complete all of the paperwork. And then when you return, you have to re-import your boat, go through all the same paperwork again. And if your boat has had any improvements while it's been away, you'll pay GST on the improvements. However, there is a special waiver for international yacht races and rallies, it's almost a race, and that can be extended. So we can potentially get a waiver which will give us 3 months for boats to be back, and so that's obviously an important thing. I mentioned support from the Indonesian government. We need sponsorship. Cisco I've mentioned, and look, I'll probably put it down there as the bottom one, but it is the most critical thing. We've got to get sufficient boats interested, not just doing Exmouth, but doing the leg on to Indonesia, because two things. Firstly, it's the biggest source of revenue is the entry fees, and secondly, what would be the point of the club organising if it doesn't get good interest from club members? So, way forward, I would ask anybody who's interested, show their support for the event. I don't think Chris has got a list yet, but we will develop a list of people who are expressing interest. We do need additional help. We certainly will do as this develops, so we're wanting volunteers. As I said, anybody who's got experience they want to share about possible options in Indonesia, please share them with Mike and myself, and we'll put them on the list of options. And lastly, and we can't do this yet, but once we get some momentum with this event and we can formally announce it, again we'll be looking for sponsorship. So look, 2025, I think last time we did Bali, the last Bali event we organised, we were at about 30 boats going all the way to Bali. So and given it's been a long time since many boats have travelled up to Indonesia, I hope we can get a pretty good turnout. Thanks. Yes.
I know that when we were looking at organising 2020 before the dreaded Lurgy topped us, we were talking about possibly partnering with other clubs, including Darwin, so that Bali or the Indonesia destination became something that you could go to without having to necessarily come from Fremantle or Exmouth. And is that back on the cards to look at inviting other clubs?
Yes, it is. Look, Mike's been up in Darwin. He's got his boat in Darwin, but yeah, no, they're very keen to cooperate. It sort of helps, but I think the way we would actually run it is Fremantle would run Fremantle to Indonesia, and they would run the event from Darwin, because there's not really a lot of overlap in the logistics, and to be quite honest, they, as long as your boat floats, they'll accept your entry. Whereas I think, particularly when you start down here in this sort of weather, we've obviously got to set a bit of a higher standard.
I know that most of the discussion last time was more about the rally component afterwards as well, in terms of developing something that people had, not just get there, get on a plane, fly back, but to then have a good calendar.
No, absolutely, Anita. Yeah, that's a good area of overlap, and there could be, obviously there's overlap at the destination, but I think if we're going to get this export waiver, we will need to organise have some loosely structured rally as part of the event. So I don't think we'd want to do a day by day, you know, day 3 you're here, day 4 you're there, but it may be that, okay, we're heading in this general direction and we've agreed to have a catch up and a party at this beach on this date, and then you go off and do your own thing. So making that a structured event, I think would help in terms of getting this customs waiver.
Bill, I really like the idea that Sydney to Hobart gets colder and Exmouth gets warmer. It just made me think that we're sort of chasing around for sponsors, but why aren't we going for Rolex?
Yeah, happy to. I'm not actually a Rolex wearer myself, Gordon, but yeah, absolutely. No, look, I would say we will try to promote this, and to be honest, what we really need to do is to attract some boats from, not from this club, but having said that, I reckon there's 200 boats out here in this marina that could do this event. So number one is we've got to get support from there, and then from other clubs around the state, and then we did, for the last Bali, we did have an entry from Hong Kong. They're going to bring their boat over after the Sydney Hobart and do that. But it's a sort of a bootstrapping exercise. If you build a profile, it becomes more attractive to sponsors.
But sometimes the sponsor can come on early and then they build the profile, they help build the profile.
Yeah, no, I quite agree. Yeah, no, absolutely. And look, there is a bit of, you know, the West Australian government currently, I think, Roger Cook and Albo's both been up to Indonesia trying to promote closer ties with Indonesia. So we won't just be asking the Indonesian government for support, we'll be looking for particularly for sorting out some of this port of entry thing to get support from local governments. In fact, every year there's been a prize put up by the Premier of WA. So even Labor government premiers have donated prizes. So. Okay, look, I think Steve's going to say a little bit about some life jacket options.
Just with that export, I've just done Ambon, and we got an exemption. The whole fleet got an exemption. Nobody was gone for more than a month or so, but it's relatively easy to get. It's not really a problem. It is a problem if you're going to go for a long time.
Thanks, Mike. So I'd just like to show you some items, a couple of items out the front here, and it's come from what Trevor and Cam in particular have said to us about the issue of a PLB, in particular inadvertently going off, as they call it, accidental going off. And many of you probably read the report, came out last year. I think we can put it up on the website, on the Exmouth website, about these inadvertent PLBs in particular, but AIS units as well going off accidentally, and I think there was about 450 or something in Australia last year, and over 70% of them were accidental, not real rescue situations. But I mean, as was said over there, that it's fantastic that we've got these modern devices that can save our lives, but in looking into this, we just think we've all got to learn more about the device, and particularly the one you have, because you know, there's quite a number of different models there, so familiarity with your own. And I'd be interested in anyone's ideas and things, because together, I think, in thinking about it a bit more, we can get some of these accidental alarms going off. We can pull it down, which we clearly need to do. So, in looking at that report, they've included how we should look after our PLB in particular, and it's they say don't look after it. Don't put it in a bag that's cluttered. So one of the things is like excuse me, a bum bag might be a good bag, but if it's got your PLB, it's got your torch, and it's got your Leatherman and etc. all in there, you know, mixing up or mixing up in your gear bag inside the boat if it's not securely stored, whatever. Those things can bang against each other, bang against the PLB, knock the flap open, and maybe even knock it, and the thing could be activated possibly, you know, so it's better in its own little spot, I think, is my reading of that. The other thing about it, of course, is in the bum bag, more likely to sit on it, and crushing has been identified as a way of possibly setting these things off, and people have trodden on them and that sort of thing, you know. So it's all comes down to looking after your unit. So I'd just like to show you what a type of life jacket here, this Spinlock life jacket. It's a more of a high-end life jacket. It's expensive. I've just bought this one myself. However, first time I saw one of these is when we were going to Exmouth, and 3 of my crew members came along with these beautiful new life jackets, and I thought, wow, look at that, you know. Anyway, since then I've learned a bit more about them, and I can see why they bought them. I'm not saying this is the only way to go, but if I know a lot of people in the Hobart race are wearing these, because I've seen them at the supplier there, and they're being serviced, and for the likes of the Hobart race. Mikey's very safety conscious. I think he's got 2 of them. But anyway, the particular feature I like about these is, I'll just put it on. So they have the ability to put not a bum bag, but a chest bag. So it's got a bag up here. So if you, as a option, if you were to put your PLB in here, like I've currently got my own one in here, if you're in the water and you're floating to about here, I guess, you can then put your hand just here and pull your PLB out, and you've got to set this thing off. So it's a whole lot easier, I'm thinking, than if it's behind here somewhere, probably underwater. So then, I know with mine, I've not only got to open this flap and activate it, which I won't do now because Trevor will get a phone call. And then you've got to pull your antenna out, of course, and it's got to be pointing towards the sky, of course, as we all know. But it's a whole lot easier if it's just here. That's what I liking about this, you know, instead of you know, back here somewhere. So that's that. I'll just take this off. these retail for $560, but yeah, so including GST. So just shop around, have a look. The last item, Chris.
We just bought two yesterday for $490 each.
$490. That's fantastic.
From Monkey Fist.
But we didn't have the
No, I already have a little bag. We've got
Yeah,
one.
okay. The bag, I think Monkey Fist, Bill said has them for $30, the chest bag.
Yeah.
Yeah. And they do attach by a toggle, so unfortunately it's only easy to fit them onto this sort of life jacket. It'd be hard to put them onto another sort of life jacket, but anyway, you've got the life jackets. These pouches, I would recommend them. The last item I wanted to show you is that you might have heard that AMSA recently approved a combined PLB AIS unit. They've been in the world for a little while, but AMSA has only just recently approved them for use in Australia, and they've only just become available. This is one of those units. So it's an AIS and PLB combined in one unit. This company here in O'Connor, West Offshore Products, have been kind enough to lend us this demonstration unit so you can have a look at it. They come over from the east today, and it's the first one I've seen in WA. The advantage of that is probably twofold, I think. Firstly, you've only got to look after one unit instead of looking after two units. And secondly, you can install them inside your life jacket like you can with the AIS, so it can go in the blow-up tube, and when your life jacket goes off or you activate it, it will automatically activate the combined unit, and it'll be beaming away both those units. And of course, because this is a modern PLB, the modern ones, besides being GPS enabled, they also they also send you a signal back. I think it's a blue light flashes and tells you that your emergency signal has been received. And so it's what, like, you know, Trevor was talking about, how technology moves on. And so this is one of the advances in the modern equipment as well. So there's a number of advantages. Of course, these things are expensive as well, of course, you know. They cost, to my knowledge, they're just a bit more than if you buy an AIS and a PLB separately. To buy the combined unit, you probably add on $150, $800 for them.
We just bought four yesterday for $803 each.
Thank you, thank you. So they'll come in more and more, and I see the good point. So if you're doing a lot of this sort of stuff, it's certainly worthwhile thinking about. But anyway, that's all I wanted to say. Come and have a look if you'd like. If there's any further discussion, because I think everyone's ideas of how we deal with this is important, you know, for us to think about our own equipment, really.
So just one point I was wanting to add is the benefit of this little bag. It's got a transparent window in it, so when you activate any of these beacons, the light goes off. But of course, if you've got that in a bum bag or any other dark fabric bag, you're not going to see the light. So the life jacket's great, but a bag which is transparent to put your electronic devices in means at least if it goes off, you're going to see a flashing light. Of course, if you mount it inside your life jacket, you know, obviously automatic life jackets go off from time to time, but you sort of know that's happened, and therefore you'll know that your AIS has been triggered as well. But yeah, basically any transparent bag to keep your devices in, then you'll know when they're transmitting.
Bill, just to add to that, for people who don't know, the other thing we like about that life jacket is that you can get it with the release system on the harness. I think they call it DRS or
HRS.
Yeah, so that if you're being, you know, if you're stuck down beside the boat, fallen off, and you're being drowned by your own harness, you can release without having to cut the webbing with a webbing cutter, or which I think is really neat.
Okay, look, that sort of wraps up the evening. Steve has worked very hard to get us the bar to be open, so to reward, we've really got to patronise the bar to make it cost effective. So it's not just an opportunity, it's actually an obligation on you to have a drink after the event.
Thank you.
We agree on something. So it makes me feel really comfortable because
Exactly the same. Yeah, I just, yes, same one, exactly the same. Is it rescue team? Scott, Felicity. We've been in the water together. We've been man overboard. Who was the teacher? I was the student. And it was your first time you had your own together. So we're forever.
Thanks for bringing it.
Oh, you got one too?
Thanks for bringing it. They're taking over the world. Well, that's how I first looked at them, honestly.
Now, let's just turn this off.